Do the Miami Heat have a hope in hell of staying close to the Boston Celtics in Game 2? Conversely, Tuesday's other NBA playoff underdog, the New Orleans Pelicans. If you like them tonight, do you sprinkle a little bit on the money line? Plus, Mark Zinno and I have an absolutely disgusting, repugnant team total that you are going to want to bet tonight in Major League Baseball. Mark, and let me ask you this.
Yes.
More likely to happen this evening, Heat cover or Pelicans win outright?
Pelicans win outright. I mean, the mantra for this series, look, I've said this repeatedly. OKC is a markedly better team than New Orleans, and that's not to denigrate New Orleans, but all the metrics tell you how good Oklahoma City is and why they ended up getting the number 1 seed. Now, Oklahoma City in the first game in this series, they were locked down defensively. I don't want to take anything away from, the New Orleans Pelicans because they played a really good game. But it's what we talked about, BP, heading into that game, that the Thunder should outclass this team because they're that much better. But if you're going to hold OKC to 43% shooting from the field and 31% from three, which is a far cry from their regular season numbers, then guess what? You're going to be in danger of losing this game, Oklahoma City. If they make shots at the normal rate that they would, they're going to just sprint right past New Orleans, especially if Zion is not in the middle. So from that standpoint, I think it's absolutely worth a sprinkle on the money line because if this game was as close as the last one is, and again, what happened? Oklahoma City needed a last-second shot to win that game by 2. So that means the Pelicans were in the whole game and they have a chance to win it. I think it's absolutely worth a sprinkle on the money line. The idea that you're going to take a unit, whatever that may be for you, and put it down on the plus 7.5. I don't know. To me, I would split it. I'd take half on the money line and half on the plus 7.5 and hope to get lucky with both of them winning.
Now, Game 1, Mark, as you know, was the rare instance of the team that won did not cover. I think it's around 90% that over the last 4 years, team that wins in the NBA playoffs also covers the spread. So historically, if you like a team to win, they're going to cover. But Game 1 was the exception to that rule. We saw another exception with Sixers-Knicks and that wild finish the other night. I also think the over might be worth a look here in this one at 210.5. These teams both shot abysmally in Game 1. The Thunder, you mentioned the job New Orleans did defensively on them. They shoot 43.5%. The Pelicans only shot 38.5%. Both teams were bad from 3, but there was high volume. They were a combined 21 of 71 for 3. If we're getting that same volume of threes, it's hard for me to believe that more of them aren't going in. And only 22 free throw attempts too, Mark. So right. I don't know. To me, there's no way the teams are shooting that bad again. So if you are looking at the total, I think the over is the only way to go here.
I'll add one thing. I mean, look, a 6-point drop from Game 1 to Game 2 by odds makers in the total is a lot. Right? Like that is a large drop off from what you've seen. Anytime you see a 6, whether it's the side of the total, a swing that big usually is something that should catch your eye. 216.5 was the total for Game 1. We're down to 210.5. Usually you go the other way with that just because you don't see swings that big all that often.
Let's talk about the other game real quick. Celtics and Heat. When I stare at the WagerTalk.com odds screen, as I often do, Mark, and look at this line, I can't help but think back to the NCAA tournament and UConn. So my numbers say this line is too high, that 14.5, 15 is too many points to lay. But you think about it, and it's like, man, how is Miami going to have, like I said, a hope in hell? Game 1, what happened? Yes, the score wound up being close. They almost stole a backdoor cover, but that was because the Celtics basically just phoned it in the fourth quarter. They were up by, 30? To me, if you're going to attack this game, because I don't want to lay this many points in an NBA playoff game. You never know. Coach Spo could have his team ready. He's one of the better playoff coaches of the modern era. But I would be looking at team totals in this. Maybe Boston was just ridiculous from 3 in Game 1. Can they do that again? I don't know. Miami, conversely, their team total, you look at it, it's right where they finished in Game 1. So I think better than betting the Heat, taking a flyer here would be either looking Boston under its team total, Miami over its team total. That's just me. Mark, is there anything you wanted to add for Game 2 of Celtics Heat, a series where everyone is presuming Boston moves on to the Eastern Conference semifinals?
Also, I would tell you that I wouldn't be afraid to lay the 14.5 with Boston. There's just a wide chasm here. between these two teams. And even if Jimmy Butler was in the lineup, I wouldn't be afraid to lay the 14. Like you said, I think UConn is a very good sort of example to use that you can't be afraid to lay these big numbers with a team like Boston right now, given the level of competition that they're playing.
Okay, so that's the NBA playoffs. Just 2 games tonight, not 3. Let's now transition to Major League Baseball, where I know you are seeing it very well. I know the Milwaukee Brewers, Mark. Have you just apoplectic how they've been swinging the sticks at the plate of late? Why don't you talk about Brew Crew and Pirates here on Wednesday? I know this is, you're just dying to let the folks know about this NL Central matchup.
I'm still confused about how the Pirates are being priced in the marketplace here. We can go back a year or two and look at the way the Orioles were priced, even last year, right? The Orioles were one of the best teams in baseball last year. They won 100 games, and they were continually an underdog game in and game out because they had stunk for so long. Well, that sounds a lot like the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have stunk for so long, and they're off to this good start. Not a great start, but a good start at 13-11. They've been a favorite the last 2 nights against the Milwaukee Brewers, who came into this series in first place with a 14-6 record. Now, the Pirates have taken the first 2 games of this series, and yet still, the Pirates here in Game 3 are a favorite once again, and they are making a spot start here with Josh Fleming. Josh Fleming, his last appearance was on April 21st. He went an inning, struck out a batter, didn't give up any hits, any runs. So he's been relieving this whole time. He's going to get a spot start, or they're going to go with a bullpen game tonight. But what's more for me in this game is the fact that the Milwaukee Brewers got to this point in the season leading the NL Central because they have been swinging some of the best bats in all of Major League Baseball. Now, if you go back to Monday, April 15th, okay, they were 10-4 at that point in time. That's how they started out their first 4 games. And they were one of the highest scoring teams in the league. Since that game, since the beginning of that series, they have scored 3, 3, 1, 2, 12, 2, 2, and 1. So they've scored 3 runs or less in the last 8 games with the exception of one of them. Now, I still think this is a lineup that can rake and hit and score. We just haven't seen it. And in fairness, they did run into some decent pitchers. They ran into Dylan Cease in San Diego. They ran into, obviously, Jared Jones in game 1 of this series. So, they have faced some decent pitching along the way. But I kind of want to play on the fact that Milwaukee is going to score. Like, how much longer are these bats going to be this silent? Do we believe they're the 10-14 or the 4-4 team that's only scoring, 3 runs or less in 7 of their last 8 games? So I think the play tonight is some combination of either the Brewers over their team total or just take the Brewers straight on the money line. I would back the Milwaukee Bats here to finally just snap out of this. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
We have quite the team total that we're going to end the show with, one that you can't believe. Quite frankly, I'm looking at my notes here on the screen, and I can't believe we are going to give it out to you here on the Morning Wager. But speaking of totals, I'm going to now move to a game where I think we've got conditions that are going to be favorable to the pitchers, unfavorable to the hitters on tonight's MLB slate, and that is Astros at Cubs. Wrigley Field is obviously a place where you get tremendous variance with totals based on the wind, the weather. Well, tonight, the weather forecast at Wrigley calls for a temperature around 45 degrees and 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in. So I would take a look at the under in Astros-Cubs tonight. These teams went under last night, 7-2 win for the Cubs, even though the conditions were allegedly favorable for the hitters that, everyone was expecting. It was a really high total yesterday. They still stayed under. Houston, over their last 7 games, 6 unders and 1 push. So they haven't been going over anyway. With these conditions tonight on the north side of Chicago, the only way to look at the total is to play the under. I would play it all the way down to 7. I think that's where it's going to close. I think when, news of this weather gets out, that's where bookmakers are going to have it lined. Perhaps it'll close that low, but it is going to be a low-scoring game in the lone interleague matchup tonight between the Astros and the Cubs. Okay, before we get to this disgusting team total that Mark and I have for you, we got a little promotion here. Mark, I know you have a very, very big play on the docket for the folks here in the NBA tonight.
5% play coming up tonight in the NBA playoffs. Guys, 69% on my last 16 5% plays. Already cashed a 5% play in the NBA playoffs during the play-in round, and we're coming back again. Make sure you guys check it out. It is up on the website, wt.buzz/MZ. Well, it'll be up here right after the show is over. I'll finish posting it. But we are locked and loaded for tonight in the NBA playoffs. Again, check it out later on today, wt.buzz/MZ. Grab that 5% winner today right here at WagerTalk.
Yes, and if you head on over to wt.buzz/BP, you will find my NBA playoff winners for today, my Major League Baseball winners for today, and also just a heads up for tomorrow, Thursday, another customer appreciation special, guys. $5 plays. I know Mark's going to have one. I know I'm going to have one. So, make note of that. Tomorrow, site-wide customer appreciation, $5 plays available. And you talk about exclusive sports betting content, Mark. I don't know if anybody in the world besides us would dare go on the internet and say the following things. But the Miami Marlins, how many runs have they scored the last 2 days?
They carry the 0 runs. They've lost 3-0 and 5-0 to the Braves.
How are we going to play them today?
Well, we're going to take their team total over, obviously. They are facing Ronaldo Lopez, widely known Ronaldo Lopez, who happens to be 2-0 on the season with a 0.5 ERA, a .94 whip. He's got 18 strikeouts in 18 innings, hasn't allowed more than 4 hits, and has lasted 6 innings in all 3 of his starts. And we're going to take the Miami Marlins to score at least 4 runs today? Sure, why not? Absolutely. Baseball regression, it's a thing, folks. Absolutely is a thing. They can't get shut out again, Brian Power, can they?
No, I don't think. No, they're not going to get shut out again. When was the last time a team was shut out 3 games in a series? That's something perhaps we will have to check with Ralph Michaels, but it's not going to happen here, folks. The Miami Marlins bet this team to score 4 runs against Atlanta. Remember, as good as Lopez has been, they're going to get some shots against the Braves bullpen as well. This is a division rivalry. And Mark, look, you live down there in the Peach State. The Marlins, while the last 2 days, you wouldn't know it from that, they have historically given Atlanta some trouble. I think you've talked about where historically either the Braves kill them or Miami winds up pulling a big upset.
They, in the last, what are we talking about now? 43 matchups. This goes back to 2021. The Braves are 31-12 straight up against the Marlins. Only 3 of those wins have been by 1 run. So now we're at 28 of the 31 wins have been by at least 2 runs or more, usually a lot more. So the Braves cover that 1.5 or Miami wins outright. And, well, if you just follow the trend that the Braves are winning about 66% of the games against Miami in this decade here, starting in 2020, the Marlins should take this one. And I don't think they're going to take it 3-0 or 2-1. So let's hope they score at least 4.
Okay, so you and I have just staked our entire reputation on the Miami Marlins here on the 3rd edition of the Morning Wager here on WagerTalk.com. Hopefully there will be a 4th edition. Hopefully the Miami Marlins score at least 4 runs tonight. And we will be back, folks, all kidding aside, tomorrow, Mark and I, to talk more NBA playoff action, more Major League Baseball. Of course, it's Thursday. That means getaway day. That means some early games. We'll have you covered. Until next time, let's catch some tickets.